Okay, it's been a while since I've talked to you guys and made a video, but some of my critics said I overlooked some things concerning the Melchizedek video, so this is more complete. The text of the New Testament says that after the similitude of Melchizedek, there ariseth another priest, when it refers to Christ in Hebrews 7:15. Now, it doesn't say that Christ and Melchizedek are the same person. This quote from Wikipedia pretty much outlines the discussion quite well. Different denominations interpret Hebrews 7:3 in vastly different ways. Some say that Melchizedek is literally like the Son of God, or even is the Son of God, in that he has no father or mother. Others say that he has been adopted into Christ's lineage through the Lord's suffering. Still others claim that the verse has been mistranslated, and that the priesthood Melchizedek held is without lineage, not Melchizedek. Others claim that the verse merely represents Melchizedek's not being a priesthood holder because of lineage, i.e. without descent, meaning not a descendant of Levi as required by Mosaic law. Like I said, that about sums up the different interpretations that people have. So starting from there, I'm going to make my case. When Abraham came back after the slaughter of the kings, they basically sacked the city. The kings who had been on Abram's side, like the king of Sodom, came to meet him in the valley of Shalom, the valley of the kings. Notice that in the scriptures, the references to tithes being paid to Melchizedek are not abstract. He specifically refers to the spoils of war, the goods taken from the city. In Genesis 14, verses 18 to 23, the riches were actual goods that were given to Melchizedek, not some kind of metaphor. The scriptures say that Abraham paid tithes to a man who was the king of Salem. Paul found this to be useful and a parallel to Christ because Salem means peace. Also, Melchizedek's lineage is not accounted for, wasn't bound by the Levitical priesthood, which also made for a good archetype and a parallel to Christ. And Abram gave Melchizedek tithes of all, referring to the 10% of the loot from the city that Abraham gave to the high priest. Genesis continues with this conversation. And the king of Sodom says to Abram, give me the persons, and you take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and I will not take anything that is thine. Again, see Genesis 14, verses 18 to 23 for the full context on that. Now, the point I'm getting to here is that these were actual physical items that were given as tithes. And so you should ask yourself this question. What would the pre-incarnate deity of Christ do with the loot from the slaughter of the kings? I can't think of any biblical reference whereby God personally takes goods or riches for himself or to use or to distribute. From Hebrews, it says, for this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings, now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave a tenth of the spoils. Now Paul says that Melchizedek was a great man. Again, Paul doesn't say that Melchizedek was pre-incarnate deity. Well, my critics say that Christ became man, which is true, but not when Abraham was giving tithes to Melchizedek. Christ had not yet become flesh. So I think it's best to continue to understand the references in Genesis the way that it was written to be understood, that actual goods or spoils were received by this priest, who was the king of Salem, a man. There is no good evidence to believe otherwise. For example, some people say that only Jesus can abide as a priest continually, and they claim that Melchizedek could not have died according to the text. However, not only are there scriptural accounts of men being taken up into heaven without dying, but even righteous men who do die abide in heaven continually, even as priests. And here's a couple verses that demonstrate that. The scriptures clearly explain that Christ has redeemed the faithful, and Melchizedek would certainly be included and would remain as a priest to God. The crux of the argument of those who say that Christ and Melchizedek are the same is from Hebrews, and they point to Melchizedek not having a mother or father. First, let's take a look at the context. The Hebrews were concerned at this time because the priests that they knew had to be descendants of Aaron according to the Levitical priesthood. But Jesus had a genealogy from Joseph and Mary which pertained to the tribe of Judah, And these genealogies of Christ's earthly parents are given in the New Testament. You can find those. So what Paul did was say, look at Melchizedek. He was a high priest and wasn't a descendant of Levi, or even know who his mother or father were. But he whose descent is not counted from received tithes of Abraham. Again, Paul was simply saying that, like Melchizedek, Christ had an order of priesthood that did not require the Levitical lineage. This point was made along with the other parallels that Paul was making. Most of the people who read Hebrews would have the same interpretation because it makes the most sense. And here's an interesting quote from the Book of the Bee, a Syriac text. Neither the fathers nor the mother of Melchizedek were written down in the genealogies. Not that he had no natural parents, but that they were not written down. The greater number of the doctors say that he was the seed of Canaan, whom Noah cursed. In the book of chronography, however, the author affirms and says that he was the seed of Shem, son of Noah. So again, Melchizedek had natural parents. We just weren't 100% sure who they are because they weren't written down. Another point I wanted to mention is that Hebrews 7:3 cannot literally be saying that Melchizedek does not have a mother or father, even if it were referring to a premortal Jesus Christ. This is because even according to mainstream Christianity, Jesus Christ is the eternally begotten Son of God the Father. At no point in time can it be claimed that Christ has no father. That would be considered heresy by almost every denomination that I can think of. So that's just another case of people taking something too literally, and then it comes back around to bite them in the end.